What is up, my fellow fellows? Today I want to go over this really busted spell in Elden Ring called Terra Magica, and go over a few of the properties that it has that I don't think everyone's aware of, and in particular go over how this could be a strong spell not just for pure int builds, but on like melee int hybrids, which I have set up here with the halberd, right? So let's go over the spell first. You put it down, and for 20 seconds, you've got this sigil that boosts your magic damage by 35%. Now, that's not sorcery damage. That's all magic type damage is getting boosted by 35%. So I've got a magic infusion on my Banished Knight halberd, right? I've just got the base stats for to use it, only 63 int. This still gets the benefit of Terra Magica. Without this benefit, I'm at about 700 AR. I step into it, I'm at 854. So, huge boost. If I pop my Flask of Wondrous Physic on top of that, I've got 10 int and 20% magic boost in there. All these buffs on top of one another, I've got nearly 1,000 damage in terms of AR on this weapon, which is really, really high, right? You're able to outtrade sort of certain ultra great swords. You're going to outtrade a lot of, pure strength, pure dex sort of setups. Maybe like a fire-infused Banished Knight halberd with, Flame Grant Me Strength and Flaming Strike. Okay, fine, that might be able to contest, but 1,000 AR is really, really high when you have all these things set up. Even more so, if I run the Clayman's Harpoon, this is the only weapon in the game that has innate magic scaling that you can buff and infuse with the Ash of War, right? If I throw that down with Terra Magica and Scholar's Armament, it just gets insane. This is a spear with 1,123 AR, right? It's a spear that does more damage than an Ultra Great Sword. Oh, I don't have Storm Stomp on this. If I did have Storm Stomp, you could have like a Hyper Armor, an on-command Hyper Armor AoE that confirms into your 1,100 AR damage poke, right? It's ridiculous, and a really, really strong setup to alleviate one of the big weaknesses that mages typically have. You jump in on a mage, typically they only got, Carrion Slicer, maybe now they have Gavel Hema. Once you get in on them. If you have, your Spear, Storm Stomp, and Carrion Slicer, you've got a really strong setup to hold your own and not crumple under the pressure once somebody gets in on you. And especially, once you have Terra Magica set up, it forces the enemy to approach you, because otherwise I'm just going to start casting these crazy high damage spells now, because I've got 35% damage boost to it. It's quite ridiculous. And then they get in on you, and okay, we're just gonna play in here where I'm gonna outtrade you the whole time. So okay, fine. It boosts your damage through the roof. But Thornbush, I know what you're thinking. But Thornbush, look how small it is. This is pee-wee tiny little sigil. I'm not gonna be able to get any benefit out of this in a duel. He's just gonna run to the other side. Well, take a look at this. So I'm gonna put it down again. If you look at the top left, that new icon that just showed up, like the 2 pages with the arrow, that's the effect of Terra Magica. So I'm gonna stand right. I'm getting the benefit right here. I'm nowhere near the visual, and I'm still getting the benefit right here. So the actual effective range of it is much larger than visually would lead you to believe. Okay, now look at this. When I exit it, it's not like that icon just disappears once I'm outside of the effective range. It's almost on like a timer where it'll last for a second and a half after you leave it before it disappears. And this is a really interesting property because as a melee build, it allows me to effectively extend the range of the sigil like so. I just run through, I just tap it, and my dash attack all the way out here is still getting that benefit, right? You're still getting the boosted AR with, and I'm putting a hitbox that's way far away from the actual sigil itself. I just need to run in, touch it, and there we go. My next attack is boosted, So this is much stronger on, say, a melee setup, because on a pure mage, okay, fine, you've got like Carrion Slicer. I can dash in, dash out with Carrion Slicer, which is, an excellent running attack. But then to also have it with like this long range, high poise damage, low recovery halberd dash attack, Or, you know, it could be the spear with the Clayman's harpoon, like I mentioned. But being able to extend that high damage hitbox so far outside of Terra Magica, right? It becomes a really active threat that I don't need to commit myself to just staying in. You know, once it's set up, you can just play around it as an environmental factor and get these crazy high damage boosts on your follow-up attacks. And again, with if you have all these, you know, boosts set up, you're going to be out-trading builds that you really shouldn't be out-trading, right? That Clayman Harpoon, 1100 damage, being able to extend an 1100 damage hitbox that far out of this sigil, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Now, actually casting it in a fight, it really just depends on how much respect your opponent is giving you, right? Good players are going to try to run down a mage and not give him enough time to cast their buffs, cast, you know, freezing mist into Terra Magica, right? This takes a bit of setup, but then it becomes a really just disgusting zone for other melee builds to have to play around. So typically people are just going to pressure you. I don't think it's that hard to set up a Terra Magica when you're on a hybrid setup. As a pure mage, where you just have Carry and Slicer for people that get in on you, okay, fine. You know, once they've got, you know, their advantage state that they're pressing on you, it's going to be a little tough to pop this off. But with this setup, right, I've got Storm Stomp on this, so I'm a mage that has on-command hyper armor that could poise through an Ultra Greatsword, that then confirms into a button that out-trades an Ultra Greatsword. And as well, Carry and Slicer, Carry and Slicer is an absurdly strong sidearm because, you know, if you cast it from neutral, it's got this little bit of a cast startup. After any of your given attacks, very little cast startup. It like skips that portion of the animation. So with this setup, the build can really hold its own when someone gets in on it. You can play it really aggressive, right? Often how I'll set it up is when I'm pressuring somebody, I'm going for like roll catch chains, and then I'll just completely flip the gun. I stop pressuring. This looks like it's going to be a different spell, you know, and then all of a sudden Terra Magica is set up, and then, you know, that's a huge problem for the other builds. So you can force or create opportunities to be able to set this up, or if you just identify, you know, this guy isn't pressuring me proper, I can set this up, or maybe I have a glint blade out and I know I need to force a roll, right? So during that time, I could set up Terra Magica. And again, like, this boosts all of my sorceries as well. This isn't just the melee aspect of it. It's just absurd. 35% is such a huge differential in damage that, you know, you set it down, it forces somebody to approach you. If they do decide to approach you, you're holding your own and dealing way more damage than them, right? With all your buffs active. Plus, again, you get to extend the effective range, which is also absurd. So with these different properties in mind, I think this is probably one of the strongest spells in the game. And if you run it on a hybrid setup, it makes this a very attractive alternative to just going a pure strength or dex setup. Now, you're not going to have access to the same amount of weapons to use. You know, you're not going to hit the minimum requirements for as many things. But, right, find yourself a main hand weapon that you like, infuse it with magic, and your damage is through the roof, right? The only thing that's really going to be an issue is if you run into Barrier of Gold, but Barrier of Gold is just like a hard mage counter. Anyways, not much you can do about it. And it's banned in tournaments, so, you know, if you care about that, it's not even going to show up, so it doesn't matter. So that's all I really wanted to go over today. Spell's busted. I've been using it quite a lot and having a quite decent success rate with it. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys have any suggestions of really complementary spells for a sort of hybrid setup, let me know. I'd love to hear about it. But hopefully, you know, everyone got something out of this. Point is, again, spell's busted, spell's broken. You should use it. Thanks, guys. Adios.